Ajax is in a bit of a weird spot when it comes to the First Descendant, boasting impressive survivability and some great team support, protecting and buffing teammates alike, while also having a complex enhancement system with his Event Horizon passive. It's no wonder players like him, but they just don't necessarily gravitate towards him when there's better offensive options available. Like, sure, defense is a great defense, but do you know what's a better defense? Having no enemies left to hit you. Now fortunately I've been experimenting a lot with Ajax, as there's nothing that quite matches the feeling of landing a perfect Hull Leap, Void Walk, and stunning everyone around to just explode with visible rage and deal a chunk of damage to anyone that stood nearby. In this video I'll be showing off 3 of my favourite builds around Ajax currently, with one aimed towards budget or early free-to-play players, a build around his Transcendent mod Void Charge, and lastly one that's just about beefing him up to do some nasty damage in a huge AoE. If you've ever wanted Ajax to feel like a walking talking nuke, well, that's the one for you. Of course, these builds aren't the final look for them, as they can be enhanced further with some more investment from catalysts and energy activators, but the video will cover general tips for each and what you'd ideally want to slot in once you get to those locations, should you want to just kind of main Ajax and deem him worthy of your resources. The support from all of you over the last few videos has been insane, and I can't thank you enough for choosing my content to watch. That said, if you can't wait for more videos from me, hitting that subscribe button does help you find your way back for more great build videos like these. And with that all out the way, let's leap into the first of the builds, and let's take a look at the budget-friendly Ajax. Kicking things off with our budget build, or what I class as an early game type build, with a couple of catalysts used and without access to any yellow or transcendent mods. Now the main aim with this is to increase what our Ajax is known for with high defense and high HP, and then follow up with some nice utility to help those skills out and refresh them just a little bit quicker, getting them through the Void Horizon passive just that bit faster. Now dropping in any sub-attack mod that you want, maxing this out gives us around about 60 points to play with, but if you have less due to mastery rank, feel free to drop a couple of points from other mod upgrades to match that what you need. Of course, the main standard for these kind of builds, and especially for Ajax, is going to be maxed out increased defense and maxed out increased HP, giving us some huge boost to kind of start with our build and giving our build the main bulk of its survival. A dead Ajax is a bad Ajax, and you should be the backbone of all team comps, being old reliable when a situation looks dire, or you're just surrounded by bunnies that are just on their knees. Don't turn that into a thing. Now once we have those 2 slotted in, we can chuck in some more defense with a shield conversion mod, being able to grant us a 14 space up to a 118% boost to our defense stat at the cost of 27% of our max shields. Now while shield does have a place with Ajax due to his empowered Void Walk, it's still a bad stat that's in the game, and we'd pretty much rather just have a huge defense boost to all incoming damage than just a mini health bar that folds when they're more than those origami artists. Now we aren't quite done yet though with our main stats, as we put in a time distribution mod to give us a small portion of skill cooldown, but also offering a very nice chunk of 52% extra HP, something on the side to keep us upright. Now with us sitting nicely at 270% bonus HP and 279% defense, you can now go 2 ways with this build. We can either lean more into survival and find more skill cooldown or HP to beef our Ajax up, or we can do what I've done here and offer some nice damage stats to help thin the herds with our 2 and 3 skills. Through a combination of Tech Master as well as skill expansion, we can now hit for some chunky damage and do it in a huger radius around us. Now Tech Master granting us additional skill power here is huge, as Ajax's damaging skills have very high base damage kind of multipliers, with Expulsion being at over 1290% of our skill power, or any boost that we can add it will be a massive increase. On top of that, a mod that also bumps up that modifier by another 25%, making it one of the best choices to slot in here. Now skill expansion though here is for consistency, for making those AoEs easier to land, but also making our Void Walk infinitely better with its radius, now hitting enemies from what feels like miles away and stunning them for 3 seconds, making our Ajax bring some nice utility for offense, along with everything that's in his defensive base kit. Now this radius will also apply to your walls and domes, expanding them to such a degree that it almost feels like you can wall off a complete zone, and making it easier for that reflected damage to land. All in all, while this isn't the strongest build for Ajax that exists, it more than holds its own until you get to those higher tier mods and look to specialise a little bit more. And speaking of which, this leads us to our second build for the video, and one for all your Transcendent mods fans out there. Now while body enhancement does get a lot of deserved love in the community, in my eyes it just kind of takes what Ajax is good at already, gives him a bump even higher up that pole. Now other mods offer a tiny bit more in other areas, with Matrix giving a bugged out kind of buff so that your teammates all collapse at once instead of individual times, and Void Explosion being interesting, but without more sub-attack mods currently in the game, it's a little bit lackluster. This is where we get the most interesting one to use, introducing a payoff for speccing into defense so much with Void Charge. Now how this mod reads is that it modifies both of your offensive skills to now deal more damage, scaling off of your defense stats. Now it also offers a nice benefit to resetting your leap cooldown should you use it when it's enhanced by Void Horizon. So now you can just pretty much leap in twice and use your expulsion once for either a get in and out attack, or just for damage in its entirety. And while this is a decent mod, I do have an issue with it. Putting this in takes our expulsion modifiers from 1290% base and 1407% enhanced to just over 1000, or just basically 1060% base and then 1145% enhanced, with the only upside being a 3% increase off of your defense stat. Now to be fair, it does give you a little bit better when it comes to your leap because you have 13% instead of 3%, but expulsion definitely comes off the worst in this. Now this is a huge nerf, one that you can struggle to overcome unless your defense scales past 60k or more. Now at 85 to 90k you're only seeing a bump of around about 10k damage with this mod slotted in, meaning it's strangely nerfed before it even gets off the ground. Now I do think that Nexon need to look at this in the future, as I don't think a transcendent mod should nerf an ability this much considering the mod's rarity. That said, in its current state, more damage is still more damage, so we've popped it in and we need to focus on our defense stat to get as much of a bonus as possible. To do this, we've started the same way as our budget build, dropping in blue mods for defense and HP respectively. We've also added in the shield conversion defense mod for another 118% boost, and finished our stats off with a HP amplification mod for 23% more HP at the cost of shield. As the idea with this build was to try and deal more damage with our stats, I recommend a swap over to offensive mods here and grab it both the non-attribute master and dimension specialist to be able to complete that job. Now these offer some nice damage boosts to our abilities at standard and allow our skill power and defense stats to really feel their usefulness to come to fruition. With this setup and components that we'll look at later in this video, you can easily hit over 90k defense and 8k HP, making you an absolute rock in the field and deal out some punishment. Hopefully Nexon will realise their error here with Void Charge nerfing the abilities with that much needed skill power wise, and we can see with a rise in offensive skill Ajaxes, which, funnily enough, kind of leads us into our last build to recommend, offering some kind of offense on a new level without the need for red mods. The Walking Nuke build is my latest creation I've been messing about with, aiming to land nasty damaging shots to mobs and bosses alike, while also having what it takes to stand in that line of fire and take the aggro. Out of all the builds, this will what's going to take the most investment though, so if you are leaning into Ajax or Ultimate Ajax and want the best of both worlds when it comes to damage and survival, then this will have you covered. Kicking us off, we have the increased defense and HP mods that we pretty much just have as standard across all builds, and you know, we've already spoken about it twice, so we won't say any more on that. Now skill expansion does find its way back into this build as well, helping us to land those skills for nasty damage, but also specifically to land huge stuns. This will become a little bit more important a little bit later on, so save that in the back of your mind while we finish the module section. Now the non-attribute master popped in here gives us some tasty skill damage modifier again, and as already discussed, due to Ajax's large multipliers on his damaging skills, we can really take advantage of those for calculations. I have also popped in MP Collector in here as a flex spot though, and I do mean as a flex spot, as I did go through plenty of hard missions just to get to the boss stage, and then ran out of mana and had to do some trash mob clearing to be able to get back in the action and just hope for those blue balls to be able to drop. Now if you feel that this isn't necessary or you don't have this mod, other mods to consider will be anything that boosts your primary stats like defense and HP, HP Collector to stay upright, more skill range through things like maximize range, as the downsides are very minor compared to large multipliers that Ajax has, or even multi-talented, as it grants some nice skill cooldown benefits and skill range and damage as you loop through your shields and offense. Now I've seen a lot of people rock the combination of overwhelming HP and an Iron Will to bump some really nice defense stats, so if you have those and you prefer those to MP Collector, feel free to slot that in as well, as it's a great combination too. But the real winner in this build is going to be Dangerous Ambush, a mod that when you've read it, you'd assume that this was made with Sharon in mind, and it probably was, but actually this is a nice option for Ajax as well. Given a nice skill power boost and not a modifier boost, it's very important that we pay attention to that, for when enemies aren't targeting us is great, but the real shine of this comes when we combine our leap with our expulsion, as increasing the range on both abilities means we can leap in, stun a bunch of enemies, stopping them from targeting us, to then increase our skill power by that 25% for our expulsion pop. Now unfortunately right now being stunned does not count for the immobilized bonus, which is a bit of a shame, and reading online suggests that this only works on void bosses when they take a knee and they can't move. That said, this combo works insanely well on all enemies that aren't immune to stun, and pretty much works as a great 1-2 combo for mobs, and even helps with bosses when they aren't looking your way. With more investment into this build, we'll be adding in more skill mods to boost up its damage and range, ideally in the order of Tech Specialist, and then maximize range to bump up your nukes to a staggering degree. Currently this is my favourite build to rock on Ajax, and while others out there do boast higher defense and HP stats, due to the dwindling returns on defense once you get past 60k, as long as you have a decent number behind you, and over that number, you'll be exactly what the rest of the team expect from you, but with the damage that they didn't see coming. So we've discussed the modules that make up the build, now it's time to look at what else exists to make up those important numbers. Starting with our reactor, and while I don't have the perfect reactor, it does do more than enough for these builds. Using a materialized reactor, we can go into non-attribute damage that Ajax is known for, and boost up our offenses. Now in this case, we're looking for either rolls into dimension damage if you're using the second build, as the transcendent mod does change its damage type from dimension instead of tech. But otherwise you'll want tech rolls to bump up that damage when you can. Ideal roll-wise, a roll into dimension or non-attribute damage is great here, but skill range or cooldown is also next best in slot. If you can find anything along those lines, then you're onto a winner. Components wise, the best aim to be able to aim for, which I've struggled to have drop for me, would be the Tomb Vanguard set. Being able to get a 2-piece of this gives you an extra 25% increase to your defense just for having 2 of those set pieces on, further helping with your survivability or even your offense if you are using it with the Void mod. For rolls though, you want to find double rolls into defense and HP, or defense and defense, as these will really maximize everything we've tried to achieve so far. Bravery Auxiliary set is also decent if you rock the full 4 set, but being farmed from Obstructor on the hard mode, not everyone will be at the level to be able to attempt that. And then lastly, the weapons of choice, which you should be able to match with your reactor, but weapons to consider running due to their special abilities are going to be things like the Python for its non-attribute resistance reduction, but keep in mind to pull off the Nuke combo you will need duplicate copies to enhance the effect to last longer. Thundercage isn't bad the shout, as it's a solid all-rounder. Tamer LMG, which I've got here, is great for sustained DPS while you wait for the things to come back. And then lastly we have is the Secret Garden. This weapon works nicely with both effects, possibly increasing your Void Horizon when you use skills, and also having a chance to increase your skill power and your firearm attack as you activate your tech skills. And there we have it, my current recommendations for builds around Ajax. With these you'll offer more than just defense, and you'll be assisting your team with AoE damage, heavy duty shields, and with some skill, huge stuns on problematic enemies. As mentioned at the start of the video, I'll be making plenty more First Descendant builds in the future, and definitely deep dives into the stats, so if that all sounds good to you, please do me a favour and just drop a like and subscribe so you can find your way back. But this is the section I want to hear from you. How are you finding the First Descendant currently? Are you excited for that early August patch that's going to be dropping with the new content? And how do you feel about Ajax? And what are your thoughts on his transcendent mods nerfing him to then buff them? Let me know all of that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. And as I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and see you all on our next video.